We'll get into the second part, that is frog acoustics, for those who are really interested in doing some field work and stuff. So we have a lot of recorders available. Okay, you can, if you're really interested in working on sounds of frogs, so you can go for any of these recorders, which are called solid state recorder, means which records on a SD card. Okay, generally it's a SD card, solid state we call it. Here, before we used to have tapes. You might have seen that tapes which we used to have in that cassette and things. Earlier it was like that, but now we use a solid state microphone. I use this Zoom, which I put in the last. Okay, I've used for my field works this Zoom microphone. It's not a micro, it has a microphone, but I don't use this because it's a stereo one. Okay, we use something called condenser microphones. If you see dynamic microphones, they have the normal working principle of magnet and around it a coil to generate energy. But here in condenser we have a diaphragm, which is most of the times metal or polystyrene, like that material. Okay, even here there's a diaphragm. So inside here we have a charged plate. So there's a charge between them, which has to be supplied externally. So this particular device, which is a condenser microphone, needs to be always powered. Okay, always powered. So we have something called phantom power, which we supply externally with the battery. Okay, but here there may not be any usage of power. You might have seen, like, one switch we use for any functions and things like normal microphones. So that's two types. And in case of condenser microphones, we may have unidirectional, bidirectional, and omnidirectional. You can see unidirectional is what I use. Like, it picks signals only from one side. Because if if I'm recording in a setup like a city, there may be a lot of background noises. If I'm holding it towards the road, maybe it'll take all the signals about noise from a, like, lorry or a truck, okay, or a bus or a bike maybe. So, but I don't want all that signals to be captured in my microphone. As much as possible, I have to avoid it. So I, in the field, use my unidirectional microphones. And if you want to do research on frogs, I suggest you to use a unidirectional microphone. Okay, so you can also use these automated recording setups, which are called wildlife acoustics setup, which you can just install. But in India, I don't know if you keep it next day whether it will be there or not. I'm really not assuring that. So in a place which is quite safe, you can install that, but otherwise I don't recommend you to install it in a city end, because this alone may cost you several thousands, but I don't want you to lose it. So, but in the forest, yes, you can keep it if it is a protected forest, if you have all that thing. It records continuously. You need not be there. It is a non-invasive type. Like, you need not be there. These are all invasive. You need to be there in the field. You can't just simply keep it and go like that. These are waterproof. It is well cased and all that. Okay. So manual adjustment of the recording level, you have to always adjust the recording level by yourself. Always remember there's a peak. Like, if I have to show you that, I don't know whether it is on. So always remember the highest recording level should not be touched whenever you're recording. It will show you a bar, okay, which is called input level. Input level should be adjusted to lower than 0. If it touches 0, that means you're clipping some of the sounds. And you should use the best format, which is the dot wave format, which is uncompressed file. Like you have in photography, if you're a photographer, you know what's a raw format, right? Same way you have to use wave format here, and it should be well built. It should be well built, because if it may fall from your hand on all that sound recorder, but in the field anything can happen. So it should be a well built cased sort of an instrument. Battery, you can use instrument which takes AA batteries most of the time. You can see this one takes a AA battery. Some of my friends use some other specialized sort. I don't know what are those batteries. It is very hard to get it sometimes. So, but in this battery, you get it everywhere, chargeable ones. Built-in speaker, it should have a built-in speaker, because anytime you can use it. This has a built-in speaker, because if you're suddenly accidentally you want to record something, it can be handy. Sampling rate and sampling size, I think I will not get into this. Sampling rate is like, imagine, the frequency of all frogs on this planet may be falling less than 10 hertz. Okay, so sampling rate should be double than that. Always remember, at 44 kilohertz. Okay, you can keep it at 98 and all that. Sampling sizes, how many amplitudes it can capture, like 2 to the power 16. We always keep 16 bits in computer. Also you have 16-bit, 8-bit, just like that. Processing speed, okay, is called sample size. And distance between the vocalizing animal and your microphone, if the animal is very close to it, it's not very good. At least you should keep a distance of about 30 centimeters. Depends on the frog size. If it's a large frog, you can keep it much away also. Okay, as I told you, this is a gain setting. Okay, this is a gain setting. Initially you have to set it so that before you start the actual recording, as I told you, it should not touch the zero mark, because if you are going to that zero level, that means the maximum sound it can capture, it will hit, and some of the waves will be clipped. I'll be able to show you in a Raven software how does that happen. Okay, so make sure that the maximum amplitude of the call is not clipped. By keeping the gain level less than zero, you can keep it less than zero. You'll understand only when you record it. Okay, so use of low and high pass filters, you can use that, but I don't use it. Like some frequencies you can filter, like that frequencies will not be taken if you set it like let's say 5000 kilohertz and above as the filter, it will not take it. So if you want it, you can keep that feature, but I never use low pass filters because I want all the sounds. Later I can remove the noise if I want. Okay, number of samples, how many samples you want depends on your experiment. If you just want to see how the frog sounds like, maybe 1 or 2 individuals enough. But if you're doing a research, maybe if you want to publish it, maybe at least 10 individuals you should have. Okay, recording and post recording. Before the recording, you should always set your instrument so that you're not clipping the sound. Post recording, always you should record certain. After you record, don't just off it. Like you just need to tell which location the recording is from. Mangalore, and date is 8th of August, and this is because you may not have time to write there. So please remember, along with your recording, there'll be a data about the recording also, that we do every time. Okay, whenever we do recording. Common pitfalls: avoid automatic adjustment of recording sound level. There's an auto level also, don't keep it, because auto level may clip the sounds. As I told earlier, it may go than zero sometime when frog is using a high what you call energy sound. That's why first, before recording, just know the pattern of calls. If some call is suddenly picking up, it should not clip zero. Okay, use of noise filters must be done with precaution. That's what I told you just now. Extra care while handling the device, not to switch on acceleration and deceleration, because there are acceleration and deceleration buttons. Don't use that. Being too close, too far from the vocalizing animal is also not so good. Okay, these are different softwares. I'll show you one of the softwares. Do you like to see participants, like how do we actually rev? Let's see. Okay, this is not a very serious thing what I'm doing here, just for fun, for you to visualize and feel the sound. Okay, how the sound feels like, because you may not have seen sound on screen, you're just heard to it. I want you to feel the sound on screen. Okay, let me open my Raven software. And for Indians participants, Raven is license is free. You can also go and take access of Raven. You have to mention what is your purpose. You want to record sound, and maybe you want to publish some research and all that. So they will give you free license. Otherwise, you have to pay close to, I think, $2,000 for this, which is close to a lakh, maybe. Okay. So
is it for Windows?
it is available for both Windows and Mac.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
See, now these toads, they be having parotid glands, right? They do secrete some toxic secretions, right?
Yes.
Like dutaformers and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but snakes happily feed on them, and don't these secretions affect them?
Some snakes do regurgitate them, just they puke them back. Okay, but some other snakes may have certain, like chemicals which may not affect that particular toxin. That particular toxin has to bind to the receptors, right? So they may have certain chemistry which is not allowing them to bind. So if you know, Preeti, Gururaj's wife, is exclusively working on these bufotoxins. So still we need to discover a lot about these toxins of Indian bufos.
Hello, my question is, we know, sir, some sources of amphibian chemo signals.
What is it? Chemo signals, is it?
Yes.
Some of the frogs are known to release pheromones. Okay, pheromones. They have something called femoral glands, like near the legs. They have a gland. Males generally, some groups of frogs, especially the night frogs we call Nyctibatrachus, are known to have femoral glands. So, but still work is not done. Okay, enough work is not done about chemical communication in frogs. Still there is a lot to be done. What we know is they use acoustic cues more than all this. Acoustic studies are given more concentration.
Acha. How then now voice recognition occurs in frogs, sir, acoustics?
Yes. Acoustics is the primary signals what they use than maybe chemical or visual signals.
How voice recognition occurs?
Voice recognition, they have their tympanum, and they have the hearing apparatus, or like may not be as complex as us. They do have hearing apparatus, okay, just like us. Yeah, females do recognize the sounds, specific frequencies and all such works are done. Maybe I can share you some research articles later. There are some good works which are done regarding that. What are the different uh, you know mechanisms of physiology involved in recognition of sound? Work is done.
Acha.
Are you able to see this screen, Raven screen?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll open one sound, participants, just for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. You can see that when you open, you can just like see I'm using 5 different frogs here, but let me show you only one of them. This is Microhyla ornata call. It's called ornate narrow-mouthed frog. Okay, you can explore this software, but I'm just want to visualize. I want you to visualize this sound. Okay, just see that it opens as you can see this is the waveform which shows as waves, and this is the spectrogram. For some time I'll close the spectrogram view and let me just show you the sounds. Can you see that how beautiful waves are there? If you see this particular thing, like see, let me make you hear that. It just sounds like truck. That's the sound of this particular frog. Okay, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yes. Now if I still zoom that, you can see there are beautiful wave formations inside. Okay, you can see that there are beautiful wave formation, and you'll be able to see that sound is a wave. We all have studied, but you can visualize really a sound is a wave. See that this is how we see like. So we take certain characters of this call. Yes, this is the one. This is the sound of this species. So we are going to study this particular character for every species, and we're going to describe the sounds. Okay, now if you see, this is called single call, single mating call. Okay, what we do is we count the number of pulses. Okay, you can just count it 1 2 3 like that. For every species it's unique. This is one of the species. I'm going to open one more. You'll be able to see that particular species has a different note. See this is the species what I discovered from Mangalore. So we have to describe these characters when we describe the species, because in frogs vocal communication or sounds play a very important role. You can see this is another species in the same genus. Can you see that number of pulses are very less? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. In that 12 were there. See how it sounds. You see, yes, different, right? Very different. Yeah, now one more I'll just show you just for fun. Okay, this is just for to make you understand how the sounds look like. Okay, then I'll just show you how to calculate frequency, then I'll just end this talk. Okay, this is another species called laterite narrow-mouthed frog, discovered by my friend Ramit Singhal in 2017. Now it is quite widespread throughout the coast. Can you see now this particular call? How many notes are there? Just see, it has a close to 70. Just if you hear that, it sounds like an insect.
Numerous.
Yeah. So when we describe the call characteristics of a species, this also becomes very important. How many pulses are there? Other than that, the duration of the call, which is called call duration from the starting to the end, that also is a very important character. If you see this animal, the call duration is just about 0.6 seconds, but the other species, the call duration is 0.4 seconds here, this particular value. Okay, and one more species you can see it's a different value here, around 0.3. Okay, so different species have different types of call durations also. Now I'm going to show you one important character which we use. Other than these, we use multiple characters. I'm just showing you this one very important character, which is called the dominant frequency, or we call it as peak frequency. Okay, what is the maximum frequency of the highest energy sound in this animal? Okay, that's called peak frequency. Let me just show you that. This character we use
Vineeth?
yes.
Yeah, Vineeth,
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ganesh here. Actually, I wanted to know
Yes.
whether there are different type of calls, because we are comparing here. You mentioned that
Yes.
there are different type of like the different species produce different types of calls, right? But
Yes.
can there be different types of calls for the same individual? Because mating calls and other territorial calls also will be there, right? So how do you distinguish those?
Definitely. Yeah, see, generally the calls which are emitted during breeding season. Okay, and most of the time which we hear, very frequent calls we call it as, are generally regarded as a breeding call, okay, or mating calls. But other than this, there can be calls which are given when they are depressed or when they are caught by a animal. That is called depression calls, or
Distress calls, yes.
release calls. Yeah, release calls we call it, distress calls. Okay. Other than this, sometimes females also have only in some species, about 1% of frogs, the females also make sound. It's called response calls. So, but if, unless these calls are there, most of the time what they release is this breeding calls only. Most of the time, 99% is all breeding calls only. But within the species also, as you asked, there can be species complexes where they may have more than one type of call.
Yes,
Then
yes.
the most frequent call is referred to as type 1 call. Then other ones you can name it as you want, type 2, type 3. Then we have to study individual type call characters.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So now,
So here it, yeah.
if there is a, are there something called as territorial calls also? I think I missed
Yes,
it.
there are territorial calls also. Yes. I just wanted to show you this peak frequency. Can you see this? This is also very important character. I'll show you for different species now. This species is laterite narrowmouth frog, 3500 hertz. Okay. Now you see this particular individual, which is the microhyla cordial. Okay. I'll just put that again, just for fun. Peak frequency. Just see this, what's happening now. 3800. The earlier one was 3400, something like that, right? This is 3700. I'll show you one more species which was shown to you earlier, which is ornate narrowmouth frog. You just see what is the frequency of that. That's a larger frog. So larger frogs will have a smaller frequency. That's always a thumb rule. Okay. Just see this. What is the frequency of this? See, it's having close to 3100. It's much lesser. One was 3400, one was 3800. Okay, one is just 3000. So these are all characters, but you need to take at least some 500 or 600 calls from the group or the species to write it as a scientific article. Otherwise, one or two calls is not enough. Okay. Yes. So I'll end it here. Thank you very much for your patient listening. And yeah.
Dr. Vineeth, just a technical question. Is there a big difference between the Audacity and Raven software?
Audacity, yeah, Audacity is useful, but here you have more control over the sound. Okay, Audacity is more like a sort of amateur sort of thing, but here Raven is meant for biological acoustics or bioacoustics, more for usage in terms of animal sounds. It's made for that because it was developed by Cornell Lab for recording bird sounds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you want to use, I think Raven should be a better software than Audacity.
Okay. I'm already using Audacity. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Yeah, Audacity is good. It's very simple and handy. That's why most of people prefer using Audacity.
What is the smallest frog recorded in India?
Yeah, smallest frogs from India are called miniature frogs, which are belonging to the genus Nyctibatrachus. Nyctibatrachus minimus is known to be the smallest one. Okay, so for Nyctibatrachus minimus.
Okay.
Then
The second question is, what is your suggestion for beginners to take study on frogs in North Karnataka region? Did you survey of? Have you ever surveyed frogs in North Karnataka?
yeah, North Karnataka means which is saying about Uttar Kannada or what is that?
He is not
Northern part of Karnataka?
specifically, maybe Hubli, Dharwad.
Okay,
Northern part.
I have not done. It should be a good place. There's a group from Dharwad University called Kadadevaru who is working on frog sound. Maybe you can approach that particular person if you want to take help in the northern part of Karnataka. They are working on the sounds of different groups of amphibians. There are a lot of
Okay,
publications.
the last question from previous session. Suggest resource papers, books online to know more about the frog acoustics.
Frog acoustics. You need to read like which part you're interested in. Like you can just type that keyword in Google Scholar or ResearchGate. You're going to get a lot of articles. And there is one article by Miguel Vences, which maybe if you're interested, take my mail ID. I'll just typing here. Okay. And send me a mail. I will send you that article. That should be good enough to start with because it has all the details about Miguel Vences 2018 paper, which is very good for all beginners. how to record and what to record, what not to record, what are the instruments to be used, all that details are there.
So if you want to describe a species, Vineeth, you have described a
Yes.
species. So
Yeah.
what are the things which has
Yes.
to be mentioned apart from the acoustics part of it? Are there any
Yes.
molecular work also which is reported and which should be reported along with the species?
Yeah. See, classical taxonomy used to use only morphological characters, like let's say before 1950s. But now, since the advancement of molecular biology is so much that we must use a molecular technique to, delineate that species genetically, and we also for the species, and we have done the molecular studies, different hand length, all that. There are about 30 to 40 different characteristics. Other than that, morphological features we need to describe, like you need to literally describe it. So acoustics, molecular, morphology, morphometry, and breeding behavior. This is what I've used in my paper. That's why it's called integrative taxonomy.
Thank you so much, Vineeth, for giving us your valuable time and sharing your experience of working with frogs and revealing their secret lives. So, which are like, secret behavior and their acoustics. It was wonderful
Welcome.
listening to you, and it was very interactive session. We would wish to host you again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you all.